They didn't take it by force. They didn't win it in war. They gave away a land that wasn't theirs to give. And the people who lived there? Nobody asked them. Nobody warned them. Nobody even told them until it was already done.
What you're about to hear is not a conspiracy theory. It's not propaganda. This actually happened.
Every single word of it is documented, recorded, proven. And yet, almost nobody talks about it, because the country that made this happen was not Britain. Britain just started it. The country that finished it, the country that forced it through, the country that looked Arab leaders in the eye, shook their hand, and then stabbed them in the back, was the most powerful nation on earth, America. And here's the part that will make your blood run cold. The Arab leaders knew something was wrong. They sent warnings, they sent letters, they flew to Washington, they begged. And the man who made the final decision took exactly 11 minutes. 11 minutes that reshaped the entire Middle East. 11 minutes that are still killing people today. This is not ancient history. This is not a story from a textbook.
The consequences of what happened in those 11 minutes are on your screen every single day.
And it all started with a promise America made to every Arab leader who trusted them.
A promise. And what they did with it tanned will change everything you think you know about America.
Don't worry. Without the permission of the Arab people, we will do nothing.
February 14th, 1945. World War II is not over yet. Europe is still burning, and Franklin Roosevelt, the most powerful man alive, is secretly meeting a king. Not in a palace, not in a capital, on a warship in the middle of the Suez Canal. No press, no cameras, no record for the public. Just two men and a promise. The king was Ibn Saud, ruler of Saudi Arabia, and Ibn Saud had one question he needed answered before anything else. What is America going to do about Palestine? Because something dangerous was building. Hundreds of thousands of Jewish refugees from Europe, survivors of the Holocaust, were pushing to settle in Palestine, and the Arabs who already lived there were terrified of what that meant for them. Roosevelt looked Ibn Saud in the eye and said these words that were later written down, documented, recorded. America would make no decision about Palestine without first consulting the Arabs. Ibn Saud believed him. Every Arab leader believed him, because this was Roosevelt. This was America, the country that had just liberated Europe, the country that talked about freedom for all people. Why would they lie? Roosevelt flew home, and 83 days later, he was dead. The man who stepped into his office had never been told about that promise, had never been told about the meeting, had never even been properly briefed on Palestine. His name was Harry Truman.
And he was about to inherit TAM, the most dangerous promise in modern history.
Harry Truman had been vice president for exactly 82 days when Roosevelt died. 82 days. And in all that time, Roosevelt had never once called him in for a private meeting, never told him about the atomic bomb, never told him about the wartime agreements, never told him about Ibn Saud, about the warship, about the promise. Truman found out about everything by reading files, alone, late at night. A small-town man learning the secrets of the world from folders left behind by a dead president. And the Palestine file was the one that kept coming back. Every week, new letters, new pressure, new urgency. Holocaust survivors wrote to him from displaced persons camps across Europe, people with nothing left, nowhere to go, no home to return to. Truman read every single letter personally. He was genuinely, deeply moved. But then George Marshall came to see him. This was not an ordinary man. Marshall was the architect of the Allied victory in World War II, the man who designed the plan to rebuild all of Europe, a figure of absolute authority and absolute integrity. When Marshall spoke, presidents listened. And Marshall told Truman, calmly, directly, "If America supports a Jewish state in Palestine, the Arab world turns against us permanently. The region destabilizes. Wars follow for decades. America's credibility across the entire Muslim world destroyed overnight." The CIA said the same thing. The State Department said the same thing. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said the same thing. His own UN ambassador said the same thing. Every expert, every analyst, every general, all of them saying the same thing: don't do this. Truman said he understood. He said he would be careful. And then the pressure started. 1948 was an election year, and Harry Truman was losing. The polls had him finished. Newspapers were writing his political obituary. Truman needed New York, a state with the largest Jewish voting population in America. The phone calls started coming at all hours, the meetings, the donations, the names. His old friend Eddie Jacobson came personally to the White House and wept in front of him, begging him as a friend, as a human being. His own political advisor, David Niles, would later admit, "I very much doubt that Israel would have come into being if Roosevelt had lived." Sit with that sentence. Not if the Holocaust hadn't happened, not if the UN hadn't voted, but if Roosevelt had lived.
One man's heartbeat. That is how thin the margin was.
May 14th, 1948. In Tel Aviv, David Ben-Gurion reads aloud the Declaration of the State of Israel. The British mandate over Palestine expires at midnight. A new country is born. At the United Nations in New York, the American delegation is watching, and they are confused because their own Secretary of State had told them that very morning, America is not recognizing Israel today. Too complicated, too dangerous, wrong timing. They trusted him. They were American diplomats. Why would Washington lie to them? The clock hits 6:11 p.m. Washington time. The declaration is made in Tel Aviv. At 6:22 p.m., a White House press secretary walks into the briefing room, clears his throat, and reads a short statement. The United States of America formally recognizes the State of Israel. 11 minutes. Declaration to recognition. 11 minutes. The American diplomats at the UN found out from a news ticker, like strangers, not called, not warned, not told. Warren Austin, America's own UN ambassador, had to be physically pulled back by a colleague who grabbed his arm before he could walk to the podium and contradict his own president. George Marshall called the White House immediately and told Truman this was the most disgraceful act he had witnessed in his entire career in public life. But the Arab leaders, the kings and presidents who had flown to Washington, who had sent letters, made phone calls, sent delegations, who had been given Roosevelt's promise on a warship in the Suez Canal, a promise made in good faith, recorded, signed. They found out on the radio, after it was done, after it was signed, after it was over.
11 minutes. That's all it took to undo 30 years of American promises.
Within hours of that announcement, 5 Arab armies crossed into Palestine: Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. The war began before the ink was dry. 750,000 Palestinians fled or were forced from their homes. They took their house keys with them. They thought they were leaving for weeks. Most never went back. Their grandchildren are still waiting. They called it the Nakba, the catastrophe. And here is the part history never says out loud. Every single person who warned Truman was right. Marshall was right. The CIA was right. The generals who predicted decades of war were right. All of them. Every one. Truman knew the consequences. He was told in writing, in meetings, by the most qualified people in America. He chose this anyway. After the recognition, Ibn Saud wrote Truman a personal letter. He reminded him, line by line, of that promise from February 1945. He asked, not as a king, but as a man, how America could look the Arab world in the eye after this. Truman never gave him a real answer, because there was none. Some decisions are made for history. Some are made for November. The people who pay the price are never the ones sitting in the room. They are the ones living in the land being decided over, the ones whose homes are being traded, the ones whose futures are being signed away by men who will never live with the consequences. The Middle East has been burning since 11 minutes past 6 on May 14, 1948, and not one person in that White House has ever been held accountable. Not once.
One more thing. The state that Truman recognized in 11 minutes POF has received more American military aid than any other country on Earth since that day. More than all of Western Europe combined.